Hey everybody, Blair Nightingale here, Wednesday Wisdom. We're firing it up for another Wednesday. And I gotta be honest, I am a little fired up. I'm a little fired up today. I'm gonna dive into this as we go into this session. Living at the highest level. We're continuing this series, and I mentioned at the end of last week's broadcast, what are we doing next week? Today, pose this question. What's the one thing? If you could do this one thing, your whole life would change, right? I said we'd talk about that today. That is what we're going to do. Troy, I see you there. Hey there from Houston, says Troy. And hey, right back to you from Los Angeles. Troy is a regular attender on here. Thanks for being on. For those of you who are joining in right now, go ahead, drop your name in the comments. I always like to hear from you. I say it every time. Love to hear from you. Love to know who you are. Want to continue to be able to have conversation with you. The goal here is to interact with you, give you a chance to get to know me some, get to know Tradeway some, but also give you something that you can put in your life, create momentum, create breakthrough. If people who know me, this is kind of an obsession of mine. Now, strength overemphasized becomes a weakness. So even this is true about that. But knowing how to optimize my life and become the very best that I can be, to live a life worthy of the calling I've received, that is something we're going to talk about today. That is constantly on my mind. And so when I say I am fired up today, I am fired up about this thing. And some of this stuff is in process for me. Some of what we're going to talk about today is in process. And I've talked on other broadcasts with you guys where Paul talks about, hey, listen, it's not that I've attained all these things, but I press forward. I press on to that upward prize. He's actually teaching about things that he is doing, he's experiencing, he's implementing, but it's not to say that he's mastered all of them or that it's all in the rearview mirror in terms of growth. And this is true today for me as well. So I'm right in the middle of it is my whole point, which I think is a great place to be to bring up this topic today. David from Portland. Tom, haven't seen you in a little while, Tom. Thanks for being on. David, I see you there. Portland, Oregon, West Coast. So I can see you guys coming in the class right now. Just go ahead, drop a comment in there. And throughout the whole broadcast, let me know what you think. Let me know what you're feeling. Let me know if you have any questions. Jeffrey, of course, it wouldn't be the same without Mr. Jeffrey on here. Howdy from a rainy and fresh air Colorado Springs. A little jealous. We'd love to see some rain out here on the West Coast. We won't get that for a little while. I think everybody got the heat wave the last few weeks. We certainly did. And I'm glad that's starting to break, but you can send some of that rain my way. That said, let's jump right in here. What is the one thing? This isn't a gimmick. I've really been thinking about this. So much comes down to this. Not everything, but so much comes down to this. You say, Blair, what is it? One thing that if we did it, not just you, me, we did it, we would experience tremendous growth. Jeffrey, I see that. God answered my prayer for rain. We would experience tremendous growth if we would do this. What is it? The thing that you don't want to do. That's it. That may sound oversimplified. That's maybe not even the answer you expected. But that is the answer. Your whole life will change. This is different for every person. And we're going to dive into this today. Your whole life, my whole life will change when I choose to embrace, adjust, adapt, engage the thing that I don't want to. I don't want to. Now, not just any old thing, right? We're going to talk about that. But we avoid pain. We're going to talk about that. We avoid change. We're going to talk about that. The one thing, and I've been crashing into this thing. I've been crashing into this thing lately and realizing that the more I have embraced in my life, adjusting to the things that I don't actually really want to do, but I know that they'll be good, it creates energy for me to actually move forward, achieve the goals that I have, become the person that I want to be. And what used to be painful isn't even pain anymore. And I think this is one of the biggest dividing lines. Not that I'm measuring people, but dividing lines. I'll just say it this way. In my own life, there is a dividing line between fruitful and not. And oftentimes that line, what's written right on it is my willingness to press into something that's uncomfortable, which, by the way, is just another way of saying pain. And I know that word pain in itself, to say it over and over, is pretty intense. But think about pain could be fear, just discomfort, like I just said, boredom. Talk about that in a minute. I mean, there are so many different kinds, awkwardness, unfamiliarity, insecurity. These are uncomfortable. They're these things. They're just, I don't normally do that. I usually go to that thing for what I need, for comfort, for familiarity, for, the safe places never lit anybody's heart on fire. It's beyond that. I think that was Mark Twain, right? He said, sail away from the safe harbor, cast off the bowlines, set sail and sail away from the safe harbor. David, I see you there. So that's the one thing. And what's important to say in this session is, without being able to connect with you one-on-one, we may not identify here what's that thing in your life. It could be on the inside. It could be on the outside. We all have room to grow. So it's often both. And maybe almost always there's something on the inside, something on the outside, right? That we can ultimately grow. Now, let me just say this. I'm not suggesting that all of life comes down to walking through pain. I have a very intense personality, and overextended, I could begin to think, well, let's just do what's hard. No, that's not what I'm saying today. That's not what I'm saying. It's not about just doing what's hard. But a lot of us find that we want to be at a certain place, but we don't necessarily feel like we're moving towards that place, or we're not getting there. We may even be expending a lot of effort. I talked about this in a previous session with the 80-20 rule, right? You can go back and watch that session. The 80-20 rule basically just says, I'm expending 80% of my energy, but I only seem to be getting 20% return out of what I'm spending that energy on. But there's an area where it's flipped. I could spend 20% energy, less, and get 80% out. Well, why doesn't everybody just do that? Well, number one, we don't always think of it in terms of that principle. But usually when that is present, the 20% investment that gives an 80% return is something we have not been doing. That could just come from a lack of knowledge or perspective, so that's important. But a lot of times, it's because we don't want to do a certain thing. We avoid it. And the heart behind that, or the underlying issue, is avoiding pain. Now, I'm not even saying today, well, great, thanks, Blair. You said I've got to do things that are painful. I guess that makes it easy. No, it doesn't. I get that. But what we're going to do is we're just set this on the table. See, what I've been challenged by in my life, and I'll tell you why specifically this has been coming up really clearly for me, is that I'm in a place where, I'll tell you this, I'm doing right now something that's called 75 hard. Some of you guys out there might be interested in this, okay? This is not a Tradeway thing. It's called 75 hard, and you track for 75 days a certain amount of activities you got to do every single day. Example, 2 workouts every day, 45 minutes each. One of them needs to be outside. And consistently pressing into something like that, I'm realizing there's these spaces in my life where exercise is just the clearest picture. I just don't know if there's any clearer picture. Growth comes from resistance. Growth comes from discomfort. And the reason we often don't get to those goals is because we avoid the discomfort, but we still desire the fruit. So let me go to the first thing here. Go back and make sure I see our comments. Yvonne, sorry I'm late. Mario, sorry I'm late. Oh, it's all good, guys. Glad to have you guys. Ruben, glad to see you. Everybody on there. Thank you for the comments. Let me just say this. There's actually a lot of power in this. Over the course of this session today, you know what's cool? Even though you and I can't sit down and process through this and meet, you can begin to ask somebody close to you. A spouse is always a great resource for stuff like this. Almost always. And the Lord is a great place to go. What is somewhere in my life that I am avoiding discomfort? But within that discomfort is the thing I might be already praying for. I'm believing for. I'm hoping for. I may be working for, striving for. The last thing we want to do is be putting in hours and work at something over here when really, if we would just engage over here, the thing we've been avoiding, it would create tremendous momentum and breakthrough in our lives. Pain avoidance, I heard a pastor that I really respect say, once he was talking to a psychologist, and the number is approximate in my mind. It's been years since I heard the story, but the psychologist was saying that I'm going to say a vast majority, 70%, 80%. We've got some psychologists out there. Maybe you can comment on this. 70, 80%, something like that. A vast majority of mental illness comes from what? Pain avoidance. The brain just goes, how do we avoid pain? How do we deal with it? How do we manage it? And if we live our lives managing that instead of engaging that, we cannot live at the highest level. The people I know, because nobody has had a perfect past. Nobody has a perfect life. It doesn't work that way. We know that. The people I know who are successful, and they've pressed into that. The people who are most influential, most dynamic, even for the Lord, they have worked through that. They've pressed into that. So I think that's a big thing that we need to talk about. Number one, I want to talk about something. Psychologists, and this is what I've been saying, psychologists call this the intention-action gap. Anybody out there ever feel like, man, I really intended to do something, but in the end, I don't do it, right? And I'm not just talking about the sin nature, right? We can think Romans 7, I do what I don't want to do, right? What I want to do, I don't do. What I don't want to do, I do. And that's a good explanation. I'm not just talking about that part of the sin nature. Just in general, you have an intention, but then the action doesn't happen. What is that? Where does that come from? Because let's go back. You know, again, this might sound overly simple, but this is actually really huge. Think of a time when you felt incredibly satisfied that you just did the thing you said you were going to do, and it was hard, and you pressed in and you pressed through, and you got to the end and you created something, whatever it was. You created something good in your life, right? You created something, it was a milestone, and it created so much fruit. And you would think that if we had that experience, we'd go, well, darn it, I'm going to do that every day. You know, that is going to be my intention every day. I am going to go for it every day. But that's this intention-action gap. Here, this is the definition. The intention-action gap refers to the difference between what people say they would like to do or plan to do and what they actually do. Now get this. Sometimes, this is true for me. I wonder if it's true for you. Sometimes the intention-action gap is the result of a behavioral bias. I'll break this down in a second here, that favors immediate gratification over the thing they said they would do. In other words, and we've said this on here before, Wednesday Wisdom, gratification versus satisfaction. Something has immediate payoff, something has a further payoff. What does it mean to deny something that has an immediate payoff? A lot of the time, it means discomfort. It means discomfort. This was huge for me to even just get language on. I mean, we've all experienced this over and over, but for me to really go, okay, that's the ecosystem at work here. And this is literally the reason why I know I want to do something. I plan to do something. And in the end, I'm the one who doesn't do it. I just think to myself, guys, if I can short circuit, if I can work at limiting the effect of that very thing on my life, I tell you what, I had some time with the Lord about 2 months ago, and I felt like the Lord, I was watching a boxing documentary. I'll share this with you guys. And I was watching these men become champions. Is there some area, something you want to be a champion at? You want to be the best husband you can possibly be. Man, you want to be a shining light for the Lord. You want to crush it in your trading, in your community, in your business, in any area of your life. You want to be more joyful, grateful, full of the fruit of the Spirit. Whatever it is, man, I'm trying to just go across the board. It could be so many things. America is in need of champions for the Lord right now. Right now. Prayer warriors. And the Lord said to me, Blair, I was watching this documentary. He said, do you want to watch champions or do you want to be one? And this thing we're talking about today is a breaker between wanting to be one and actually being one. I know I get clarity on what I want to do, and then I actually am able to consistently go and execute it. The days don't pass me by, right? The months don't pass me by, but I'm actually able to do it. This gap is huge. I see, Ivan, I see your, I see your comment there, Ivan. Hey, Blair, all us YouTubers are late. That's okay. That's okay. I don't know if there was an issue on YouTube or not. Today, living at the highest level, we're talking about what's the one thing that if you did it, if you began to fight this fight with clarity, conscious of what I'm sharing today, it's going to be a lot of power. What would that one thing be? It would be the thing you don't want to do. It'd be the thing that you maybe avoid doing. And we're talking about that intention action gap because ultimately we can so easily, in our culture, it encourages this. And I'm not blaming everything on the culture, but I'm saying it encourages this. Immediate gratification, satisfaction. They're two different paths. Two roads diverge in a wood, but I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. The famous poem, we know that. That's the intention action gap. I talked about constraints, limiting constraints on a previous session. Okay, that's one of the keys to breakthrough. So you can go back and rewatch that, or you can watch it if you haven't seen it at all yet. That is in the Keys to Breakthrough series, limiting constraints. My number one constraint, I've shared this story. My number one constraint that I learned from one of the world's lead personal development firms, professional development firms. I mean, these guys work with everybody. Christian guys, amazing, the Flippin' Group. I mentioned that before. My number one constraint, resistant to change. Resistant to change. that partners with what I'm saying today, where there are adjustments that I could make, but that requires some discomfort, requires some pain. You know, I was thinking about this earlier. Some of this is going to speak to somebody out there. I've got some friends, and they're like, you know what, Blair? For decades, we trusted the Lord to provide for us, and he did. But you know what? We never went to another level financially until we actually just sat down and said, you know what, Lord? We need to make a budget. We don't like, we hate budgeting. It's boring. You know, these things, this is a simple thing. Some of you out there are like, oh my goodness, we budget all the time. A lot of people don't. In fact, a large majority of Americans do not budget. The household doesn't budget. I've literally read these statistics. It's a simple thing, but it's boring. It can be so boring. It can be dry. It can feel limiting, but actually it's freeing. So if we know that, why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't we just do it? Because there's discomfort. Because there's something that we got to pay into that. And when they did that, I was thinking about these friends of mine. When they did that, not only did that bring health into their life just because they had a budget, but the Lord actually honored that stewardship. They went to a level of trust that was higher. Some of these things, man, these breakthroughs are right on the other side of some minor adjustments, but we may not be willing to do that because it's just easier to do it the way I've done it, or it's easy to go for the quick thing, or it's easier to, am I speaking to somebody out there today? Because this is huge, 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 huge. What if we began to just say, Lord, what's one area that I'm avoiding? Avoidance is a coping mechanism. That's what avoidance is. And it avoids pain. It avoids discomfort. What's one thing, Lord, I'm avoiding? What's one thing for some of us, it could be a pretty big thing. For some of us, maybe small. Blair, you don't make a budget. It could literally be that. What if we became encouraging with one another? What if we became accountable to one another over a few key areas at a time? This is something that I avoid. This is something that I don't want to do. Fear, I mentioned this earlier. That's pain. We've talked a lot about that. Okay, we've talked a lot about that. I think all of the keys of breakthrough ultimately can really help us in this. Okay, so we've already gone through that series. This is helping us identify, man, this is actually a battleground that I wasn't quite aware of, or I wasn't aware of with this language. But this is the intention action gap. I mentioned a book a few weeks ago, I believe it was. If how-tos were enough, we'd all be skinny, rich, and happy. If just opening up a book and going, okay, do this and do this and do this and do that, and that's all it would take. Wouldn't that be great? Well, of course it doesn't work that way. This is one of the biggest reasons why it doesn't work that way. So we've got to do a few things. One, we've got to break down, what do I avoid? Where am I doing this? Where is this battleground for me? Number one. Number two, what kind of partnership can I get from the Lord, from people around me, to say, I want to get breakthrough here because I have an intention, but the action isn't happening. And it's costing me something. And that's the thing. There's a saying that says, vision gives pain a purpose. Vision gives pain a purpose, right? Watching the boxing documentary, why would you train so hard if you didn't have a hunger for that championship, right? Use that as a metaphor even. The way we would work to build our trading, or the way that we would work to build a business, or the work we would do to make sure our marriage and our home is as healthy as we want it to be, or to grow and mature in the Lord like he would want it. Whatever the goal is, there's intention. But vision gives pain a purpose. Somebody needs to write that down. Vision gives pain a purpose. Why? Because you maybe don't have any vision in an area. And that is what I'm saying. If we don't engage this battle, it is actually costing us something. It's costing us something. And that is the vision. Where am I going? Where do I want to go that I'm not going? I could go there, but I'm not getting there because I'm avoiding some of the things that are necessary on my way there. I'm telling you, I'm doing this 75 hard. It's 2 full-on workouts a day. I like to lift weights. I don't like to run. I don't like to get my breath going heavy, my heart going. And I'm doing this thing, and I tell you what, how incredible I feel after I do that. That thing I avoid, I don't like doing. But I've got accountability in my life. I'm using some of the keys to breakthrough. I feel like this is something the Lord has me going through right now. There are things in my life that are helping clarify and encourage me to keep going. And as I'm doing it, it's so palpable to me that if I will just be a man who will find a few of these key areas in my life, I avoid that. I don't like that. But there's life on the other side of that. I'm going to put something in place and press into that. For some of us, it's just what's unfamiliar. We've done it this way for so long. But is there some life trying it a different way? If the results I'm getting are not what I want, okay? So we need to ask God. We need to ask somebody who's close to us. Or maybe we already know and narrow it down to a few things. Then we need to begin to look at that with the keys to breakthrough. We need to begin to look at that, especially with some kind of accountability or partnership, and go, this is something I'm going to press into. Because chances are, if that's an area that's being highlighted for you, then that 80-20 is waiting for you. Listen, that 80-20, let me say this again. I know we had some late people. 80-20 principle. You can look it up too to review. We also did a session on this. If I'm spending 80% of my energy, resources, investment, attention, whatever it is, and I'm getting a 20% return, that means I'm putting in more than I'm getting out. I'm not getting what I want out of that. If I could flip that, are there key areas that I could be putting in 20% and get more, get 80% out? For a lot of us, I said this already, say it again. The doorway into that 80-20 flip is probably something that we are avoiding. And it's not about going, well, okay, I guess I just got to buck up and do hard stuff. That would be pretty useless for me to come on here and say that today, because it wouldn't work for me. No. What I'm doing is I'm going, all right, I got those keys to breakthrough. I told you guys in the sessions on keys to breakthrough, I use those. I haven't called them keys to breakthrough my whole life, but those are things I use because they create energy and power. I want meaningful movement towards a defined and desired outcome. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Meaningful movement towards a defined and desired outcome. And once that is defined, I can begin to employ those keys, but I will find along the way that there is discomfort and there is pain. And you know what that makes me want to do? It makes me want to quit. It makes me want to choose gratification, which is easier in the short term. So everybody does that. And you know what? There are so many pleasurable, entertaining options. And what I mean by that is just literally the easier route, the easier road, whether it's your health, your mind, your money, whatever it is. Trading, Market Mondays, we talk about trading. You can trade and do the real work of a trader. This is something we work on with our students. There's real work to be done. What am I looking for? Am I going to learn the system? Am I going to work with a coach? Am I going to work through my own emotions and how they manifest in trading? Like, there's things to be done. Or, you know what, I'm going to set up a trading account and I'm just going to take some shots. And you know what? It's kind of fun. It's exciting. I just trade. I just try it. That's gratification. But in the long term, I can pretty much guarantee you, not going to be satisfying. Not going to create the financial future that we want. Certainly not the one that we could have, and that could have is what I mean by vision. And when we get vision, that can give purpose to the pain. And then we use the keys to create structure so we have energy to stay focused, not on 10 things, but on the key things, on the main things. I don't need to do 10. If I have a list of 10, take the top 2. Those are the heaviest weighted ones. What are the things that are going to create the most breakthrough? I say this to people all the time when we're just dreaming or we're strategizing about their lives. Think of the one thing in your life that if that changed, it would have the single greatest impact on the other areas of your life. That is a strategic place to focus in and give energy to. Colin says, options. I am avoiding trading options. Maybe ask yourself why. Because I'm just going to, I'm not picking on you here, Colin. I love that you shared. I'm going to pop this up. All right. Colin says options. I'm avoiding trading options. Okay. There are benefits to options. I've done stock trading, but I primarily only trade options. There are benefits to options that I like. And a lot of people feel that way. I certainly do. But you didn't say, I am not yet trading options. You didn't say, I'm on my trading journey and I'm not quite ready to trade options because I just started. You said, I'm avoiding options. Okay? And here we go. Colin says, they're scary. Right? What is fear? I mean, really, what is being scared? Being scared, which, by the way, I've said this already on previous broadcasts. Part of the reason that I've got a lot of this material and these keys and all this stuff that I bring to you guys is because I've been living for years overcoming all kinds of things, and fear is a big one of them. So, that said, I understand. Colin says they're scary. What is the state of being scared? The state of being scared is living in a state that has an expectation of an outcome that you don't want. Being afraid is being in faith for something that you don't want to happen. It's a belief. It ultimately reflects a belief. It doesn't reflect our identity. That doesn't reflect our value. It has nothing to do with that. But it is a state that we live under. And it may or may not tell us the truth at all. So I think fear is a huge one. And Colin's saying they're scary. And that's just going to be a matter of pressing in and getting familiar with them and using them and being around people who use them and getting the training. And that's what it's all about. And asking yourself why they're scary. Why they're scary to you. I just think it's a great example. Somebody else is going to say, well, it's not options for me. It's this. It's this conversation I need to have with this family member. It's this financial or health issue that I just don't want to address. Or go down the list, right? Everybody on this broadcast has got something. Everybody's got something. The one thing that if you could do it would change your whole life is the thing you don't want to do. It's the thing that you avoid doing. It's the thing that I avoid doing because there is an action intention gap. There may be lack of vision. There's things that I need to do to put the keys in place to give myself momentum. Because if I'm honest with myself, there's just areas where I'm avoiding pain. I know there's fruit on the other side, but I'm just avoiding pain. And that avoidance, and this is the whole point of this entire session, that avoidance, where I identify it, is costing me the highest level that I could live at. This isn't about, looking, searching through everything in your life and trying to figure out every little piece and self-motivation. No, this is about where's a place that I'm avoiding? And I know there's fruit on the other side. Am I going to choose today to go, there's some pain there. There's some pain, there's fear, comfort, discomfort, boredom. I keep using these examples because pain is a general term for all different kinds of things. Expectation of something I don't want to happen, embarrassment, failure. So that area is a gold mine for anybody out there who has clarity on what that might be. And if you don't, I'll go back to what I said. You can ask some people around you. People who are close to you a lot might know some of those blind spots. I know people in my life, when I ask them, some of them, it's easy. They're like, oh yeah, this area. You avoid this. You know a lot of what to do, action, intention, gap. Okay, let me help you do that. This is huge. This is huge. And it's a process. It's simple because it's clear. It's not complicated, but it's not easy. Right? It's not complicated, but it's not easy, but it's a battle worth engaging. So if we would do that one thing, what's the one thing you're going to do this week? What's the one thing you're going to do? Take a pen and paper and write down. It's not going to get done because you wrote it down, but it's going to start there. Maybe you're watching this with somebody. Maybe you need to share this with somebody. What's that one thing you're going to write down on there and say, you know what? That is an area of tremendous fruit. Is my pain avoidance worth sacrificing the fruit that could be there? And if the answer is no, then we're getting somewhere. What's something I'm willing to do to get that? To begin to change that. Baby steps, start small, something. I don't want to pay a price for this in my life. I don't want you to either. I can see the guys, everybody's commenting here. We got Facebook comments on options. Jeffrey's saying, you probably had a first-time bike, didn't you? Right? It's like trying to learn how to ride a bike for the first time in your life. There's discomfort. There's anybody out there feel this way? When you're learning things when you're younger, it's like, well, this is kind of normal. This is what you do. But then as you get older and you're starting over and you're learning something brand new, you almost feel like I should be further along in this. I should know what to do. Anybody gone back to school out there? Felt awkward? Takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that. You could have avoided that. And man, you'd have given up on something tremendous. You know what I was thinking? And I'm going to close with this. I'm 36 years old. 36 years old. In 4 years, obviously, I will be 40 years old. I'll be 40 years old. In less than 20 years from then, that's retirement age, 59 and a half, right? People retire at different times. I get that. But ultimately, as far as the U.S. tax code is concerned, 59 and a half is a very important number. Time is flying by. Can you guys believe we're coming in to the last quarter of 2020? And this year's been crazy. Maybe for some of you, it's felt long. It's felt intense for me, but it hasn't felt slow. Time is flying by. And every year that goes by faster, it seems, than the one before. And this is all about doing the most we can possibly do for everybody around us, for the Lord, and for ourselves while we're here. We cannot afford to look back at the last X amount of years and finally take that step and go, you know what, geez, I sure wish I had done this 10 years ago. I sure wish I had done this 5 years ago. Troy says, Blair, you're still a cowboy. I am aware. I am older than some. I am younger than some. And I know a lot of tradeway folks, they're 40s and 50s and 60s and up. That's our community, and I love that. I get to learn a lot. I get a lot of wisdom out of that. So I'm not saying I haven't reached the end of the road yet, but no matter where we are, dude, it's Wednesday. This is a day of life. People who are, were in the office when I worked there, they know. I'm not just saying this because we're online now. This is how I would talk in the office. Like, this is a day. This is 24 hours we've been given. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity and potential to experience God and to give that away to others in a 24-hour period. And it doesn't mean everything is fireworks and we get up, we do what we need to do, we go to work. But we're always moving forward. That's what I'm talking about. And if, no matter whether you're 36, 56, or 86, or 16 on this broadcast today, we can't afford to give up time avoiding something that the Lord has offered us that's there for the taking. Because we have this discomfort mechanism in us that kicks in and takes authority over what we're able to do in a day, where we had the intention and then it short-circuited the action. And then we did not get fruition. We sacrificed fruition. Troy, I see your comment there. That's not a tyranny I'm going to let hang out in my life. I was coaching a trader the other day. He said, Blair, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm the problem. It's not the system. It's not the market. It's me. I said, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I've been there. Let's have that conversation. That is the right conversation. It's not out there. It's right here. Doesn't mean there aren't challenges and things going on out there. But this, that's what I'm responsible for. And that's, Paul says, I beat my body and I make it my slave. He says, I will be mastered by nothing. This was his intention. Look what he did in a lifetime. Look what Paul did in a lifetime. You say, well, Blair, I'm never going to be like, all right, I'll let you win that argument. If you don't think you can be like the Apostle Paul, that's fine. But live at your highest level. Live a life that's worthy of the calling you received. And by the way, I told you already, I'm talking to myself today. But this is what's on the table. And to me, it's exciting. Because if vision gives pain a purpose, what if we just became a people who more and more and more and more achieve the vision? Bam, got it. Next one. Bam, got it. Line them up. Next one. Because I'm overcoming the no that's in me. And I'm taking authority and I'm saying yes. And I'm pressing into those things and I'm putting the structures in place in my life so that I have the momentum and energy to become the absolute most I could be. And who knows? Who knows? You might just flip the world upside down. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you want to transform your home for your kids. Sounds like a really worthy goal. Sounds like a really worthy goal. I heard a coach, he's a Christian, said his name's Ed Milet. Ed Milet, actually. He said, when you tell your kids You can do anything you want. You can be anything you want. What happens when your kids turn back and look at you and say, well, how come you're not then? Why aren't you? You tell me I can be happy. How come you're not happy? Now, I'm not saying anybody else out there necessarily falls under that. But we don't want to throw these ideals out and sacrifice them for ourselves, because those are the people who are going to receive from the battles we win. Jeffrey, Paul wrote some good letters, I guess. Yeah, he was okay. Apostle Paul was okay. Right? Guy writes over half the New Testament and turns the world upside down. I don't see anywhere in the Bible that says God goes, I have a small calling for you, Blair. I have a little bit that I want you to do. I don't want you to be too much of a light. I don't want you to be too impactful. I don't want you to be too powerful for the gospel. I don't want you to be too loving. I don't want you to be too peaceful. I don't want you to be too fruitful. Yes, Colin says, yeah, but he suffered an awful lot. He sure did. He sure did. And we live in the United States of America, which is a whole different ballgame. So we have even less excuse. We have even less excuse. And yet, tremendous need and tremendous calling. Okay? We're just preaching now. Tom, goals being worked on in action is painful for a time, which in time spent turns to joyful anticipation in reaching your goals. Yeah, the pain doesn't last. What did Jesus say about birth? Right? There's sorrow. The mother has sorrow because she knows that the time has come. But when the baby is born, she forgets her sorrow. The birthing process is a great metaphor. It's a great metaphor for what we're talking about. But let me I said I'd close. You guys have got to know by now, sometimes I'm just going to say I close and then I don't. Because I have no shortage of things to say to you guys. And I'm going to say it again 1,000 times. I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat. Right? We're all in this together. So this is not me talking just at you. This is me talking with you. And I can see all those comments. I love how much commenting I'm seeing on there today, you guys. It's great. It's great conversation. What's that one thing for you? Keep it simple. What's one thing you could do? Begin to put keys into place. And if you're really stuck, and I will close with this, if you're really stuck, look at the key to breakthrough that is burning the ships. Because sometimes to get out, we got to go all in. Sometimes to get out of what we're in, we got to go all in on something else. So those keys to breakthrough are there for a purpose. Right? All right. Thank you guys for being on here. We are going to be back next week with the same series. We're going to continue to press into this. It's all connected. It's all connected. Whatever you want to do, that's what this is for. Right? And I can tell you this, trading is more about what's going on in the trader than is what's going on the chart. It's more about what's happening inside of me than what I'm able to see on a stock chart. Most new traders don't believe me when I say that. They find out what I mean once they start trading. It is a big deal. So it's all connected. It's all connected. So we'll be back on Monday, same time. Market Mondays will be here. We're going to continue our series and interview another trade way. I was going to say coach. We're going to do something a little bit different this week, so watch for the announcement on that. But I'm loving these interviews that we're doing on there. We're going to have a new special guest coming. So make sure to join us on Monday for that. That's going to be 6 p.m. Central Time right here, same as always. Thank you guys once again for being on here, commenting. letting me into your world, letting me into your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen, your front lawn, wherever we are right now. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Let us know if you need anything else. As always, good night.